So mechanically, how does magic work in Mage the Ascension? There's two components you need for magic to work. The first thing you need is spheres. There are 9 spheres. There's correspondence, entropy, life, forces, matter, mind, prime, spirit, and time. That's 9. And these all correspond, no pun intended, to different facets of reality. Correspondence is space, distance, length, width, things like that. Entropy is both chance and decay. Then you have forces. These are the primary forces of creation, like electricity, nuclear power, fire, things like that. We also need to talk about life. Life is literally controlling over life energies. This is what you would use to heal wounds or create wounds, to shapeshift, things like that. Then we move on to matter. If forces would be fire and air out of the classic 4 elements, matter would be earth and water. It is any solid objects. This includes lumber-style wood, in other words, non-living wood, any non-living material, mineral, stone, earth, etc. Then we move on to mind. This is thought. This is the sphere that controls thought, your mind, emotions, things like that. This next sphere is a little problematic for a lot of people. It is the sphere of prime, and it covers quintessence, the 5th essence, the 5th element. And the 5th element in Mage is quintessence. It is pure possibility. It is unmolded potentiality in energy form, and it can be used to power all sorts of magics. And it's a magic in and of itself. As a matter of fact, when you start throwing prime around, in Mage thought, every body, every object has a pattern. That is what creates the physical body. It holds those primary forces of creation, spheres themselves, into your body, into a form, allows it to exist. Prime can disrupt that. It can break the very pattern of objects and creatures, and it causes very irrevocable damage. Spirit is spirit magic. It is not just the spirit of those that have passed on. It is even werewolf-style nature spirits and the like. It is the ability to talk with entities extra to our world, outside our world. A lot of times just outside. And then time magic is just what it sounds like. It's the ability to manipulate time, both forward and backward, etc. Each of these spheres is embodied by a particular convention within a tradition within the Council of Mages, the Council of Traditions. And there's a lot of neat stuff that gets done. But in order to do those, after you figure out what spheres you have to have how many dots in, and the dots range from 1 to 5, 1 being a very apprentice, to 5 being a master, an absolute master at it. You roll your arete. Arete is not the correct pronunciation. That's the pronunciation we used to use back in the day. Eret is what it should be. Eret. And your arete is your control over magic. It's a number from 1 to 10. And that determines how many dice you roll. And then when you put your spheres together to determine the effect you're doing, that can increase the difficulty, etc., etc. And arete is a measure of how accomplished you are as a mage. If spheres are how powerful, arete is how accomplished. Now, you must have a certain score in arete before you can take dots in spheres. You have to have at least 1 dot in adet to take 1 dot in any sphere. And then 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, 5 to 5. So you have to have at least a 5 adet before you can take a 5 dots in any sphere. And these put together are what create your magical effects. You roll your aret versus a difficulty. Sometimes you have a threshold, which is a certain number of successes you need to accomplish in order to make the magical effect take effect. And that's the basics of how the magic works. Now, when I spoke in the last video about quintessence and paradox, quintessence can be used to earn decreases in difficulty. You're using up stores of energy you have, pure magical energy, to make it easier to do something. Now, for coincidental magic, as I spoke of in the last video, magic that could happen, it's usually not very difficult for a base difficulty. And usually will not earn you any paradox at all. If you're doing vulgar magic without witnesses means without mundane people. If you're doing around werewolves, vampires, things that already shouldn't exist according to those people, that's not considered a witness. The difficulty goes up. Usually it's around a 5 or a 6. And then if you do vulgar with witnesses, it's even higher. And what happens is when you do vulgar magic, there's a set amount of paradox you're going to get based on the effect you're doing. Plus, if you botch your aret roll, you'll get even more paradox. And what happens then is every time you try to use magic in any way, you're going to make a check. You're going to roll a number of dice equal to your current paradox score. And everything that is, I believe, a 7 or an 8 or higher discharges into a paradox backlash. And however many successes you get, the larger the backlash, the worse it could be. You could even enter into what's called a state of quiet, which is where magic doesn't work right for you. Reality really punishes you for it. But that's how the magic works. And we'll go into more detail on each of the spheres when we talk about the traditions, because each tradition, as I said, is a champion of a sphere. For instance, the Order of Hermes is a champion of forces magic. The Celestial Choir, or the Celestial Chorus, is a champion of prime magic. The Akashic Brotherhood is a champion of mind magic. So we'll talk about that more and more as we go forward in this. That's how magic works. So when it comes time to spend your experience points, you're left with this dilemma of, do I increase my spheres, or do I save up to try to increase my arete even more? And good storytellers, in my opinion, when you go to increase your arete, you go on a vision quest. You have a mental quest that you have to undertake. And you have experience points tied up in getting that arete. And if you do not succeed on that vision quest, your experience points are tied up with that, usually until you can feasibly try again to increase your arete. And that's part of the storytelling experience of Mage. It's not just a plunk the points, I got it, here I get it back. It takes time and involvement and is very story driven, because each of those vision quests should be tailor-made to the person and what they're trying to accomplish, given their paradigm, everything like that. This is storytelling taken to the nth degree, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much.